Greetings shippers and welcome back to another episode of our series Moments in Fandom History. This time we're taking a look at a topical one, at the time of this recording at least. It involves Shiro and Voltron. Now the Voltron landscape, particularly transformative fandom, has always been an interesting one. So of course the reception of recent announcements has been no different. Now before we get started, a brief disclaimer for those of you who are new here. On this channel we like to look at things from a wide array of angles. The good, the bad, the perplexing, just everything. So because of that, this is going to be a bit of a deep dive. And there is the potential that not all of it may leave you with the best feeling. So if you're still in that place where you just want to enjoy your Shiro news and not potentially be dragged down, then perhaps come back later or check out one of our other videos. But if you are ready to explore what effect this news has had on various facets of the fandom, you're in the right place. Finally, before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media so you can keep up to date with what's coming up next, streams, and just random fandom chit chat. It's a good time, I swear. Now, there's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. At the 2018 San Diego Comic-Con, it was revealed that Shiro, one of the paladins of Voltron, had previously had a boyfriend. Now this news was met with a variety of responses, however overall it was overwhelmingly positive, as the showrunners had long promised that the show would indeed include LGBT+ representation. However, the fandom had a unique reaction, entirely linked to how volatile it has been as the show is aired, a reaction that will undoubtedly be largely lost to time, at least in terms of the fervent emotions behind it once the show ends and years pass. So let us catalog exactly what people think about this newly revealed piece of Shiro's backstory. Voltron promised early on that it was indeed a show that would include LGBT representation, and had it not been a promise, it was already expected thanks to a small overlap between the creative staffs on the show with staff from Legend of Korra, a series that ended on a reveal of a burgeoning LGBT relationship. Despite being different shows with different showrunners and many different staff members, Voltron was held to the standard of not only having to do better than Korra, but people also used Avatarverse logic and scene parallels or perceived parallels in a quest for proof as to who exactly the couple would be, as the assumption was that it would indeed be a couple. Speculation was most often cast upon the two most prominent ship rivals within the fandom, the from the start near dominant clans and the oft maligned Sheath. The wars between these two ships, as well as overall aggressive shipping and fandom atmosphere in general, have been well documented, and we have done videos on both Clans and Sheath, and more as well. Also on the infamous Clans blackmail scandal, the latter of which links directly back into our aforementioned topic, as the alleged rationale for that blackmail was that Clans must be made canon and that the show should stop baiting its fans. From early on, but especially post season 3, the series was rife with allegations of queerbaiting, both in general, although more specifically pertaining to Clans. An accusation born more out of a fervent desire to see the couple in question than an active malicious marketing campaign on the part of the show and staff, though some argue that the cast and crew were too vocal about their opinions about shipping, to which some counter that is unfair as they were asked for their opinions. And others feel the fan expectations which spread out to new people entering the fandom was a large part of what created this environment, while others maintain that queerbaiting is still potentially happening. It was into this environment that the announcement/reveal of Shiro's past was made public, this being in the lead up to, at the time of this recording, upcoming 7th season of the show. Executive producers Lauren Montgomery and Joaquim Dos Santos discussed that Shiro was indeed in a relationship with his former flight partner, Adam, a relationship which ended after an undisclosed illness led to Shiro choosing the Kerberos mission over staying on Earth in a relationship with Adam, an announcement the cast and crew knew would have a profound impact, and were excited to share with their fans. With Montgomery saying, "It was really that special experience of being with people when they discovered that aspect of his character." With Bex Taylor Klaus adding, "I knew when it was going to happen in the episode, so when that happened I turned to the audience because I wanted to see their reaction. It was great." This was also followed by the promise that fans would indeed get to meet Adam in the upcoming season, and fans were excited by even more information, with Montgomery adding, "He's not married yet, but that was the road they were going down until Shiro made the unfortunate decision to leave and they drifted apart, and that was the end for their relationship." It was definitely something, that beautiful relationship that had developed over years. They went more in depth in the post-panel interview when asked, the question being, "And then if you guys know, how does Shiro and Adam identify in their sexuality, like gay or bisexual?"
They're in a relationship. Yeah. I think that's really
I think the one thing is maybe allow the fans to see what they want to see. We don't want to put anyone in the corner where it's like, so other people feel like they are not represented.
Just so you know, like us confirming or not confirming one way or the other either leads to like our Twitter being destroyed or not. And we realize that that's just passion for the show, for the characters, and we appreciate it. we just don't want anybody to feel like they're not being represented.
Sure.
This statement clearly being made in part because of past fandom accusations and volatility, but more on that later. Following this announcement, many people were ecstatic, quick to express how much it meant to them and how thrilled they were about many factors. Such factors including that it did not occur just before the series ended, a common complaint leveled against other series, such as the aforementioned Korra. Also, that it involves a main cast member and not a side character, as many believe that the show would quote-unquote cop out and choose one of the lesser supporting cast who they don't really need to focus on. Next up, that the character in question will get scenes with this person, and their attempts to make this story into a fully fleshed out relationship with all the highs and lows that entails. That Shiro was established as a character beforehand, and this was introduced naturally as just another part of his ever-evolving backstory, just as any other relationship would be, making it part of his character rather than his defining characteristic. This was also coupled with the fact that he is a likable, accomplished character, and not a villain or a stereotype. Some were pleased that he was a character of color, and there were some who were also pleased that the character is traditionally, at least in the Western sense of the world, masculine. Again, that will be elaborated on later. Josh Keaton, Shiro's voice actor, after waiting for the news to be announced, shared his excitement at being part of such a groundbreaking moment, and expressed enthusiasm at the upcoming scenes between Shiro and Adam, as it has been promised they will be unlike anything seen in Western animation, an exchange that's been emotionally charged between two men who love each other. Questions about whether or not romantically should be added to the end of that sentence aside, the reaction to this news has been much more multifaceted than many realize, particularly depending upon where they are in fandom and how active. So firstly, let us address the expected backlash. That of course being that this kind of representation and relationship does not belong in a children's cartoon, and that it is being forced upon young audiences. An argument which can easily be viewed as often hypocritical, as the same argument is often not employed when the couple in question is heterosexual, say the burgeoning for a time Latour relationship, although there are at times exceptions, particularly in instances of young romance. On top of that, this moment was also met with the usual accusations of pandering, that being representation not included from a place of genuineness, but from an attempt to include a certain audience from a profit standpoint, and for the show to appear more politically correct. A view that in this case some find unnecessarily cynical. However, while as expected there were some who reacted in this way, be it out of homophobia or simply some form of unrecognized internal bias, such as the fact that this announcement was even treated as a reveal, well, revealing an inherent bias towards heterosexuality as the default within media. On the whole, the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive, and as a result, that response has been largely overwhelmed. And what has occurred instead in some circles is a fascinating bit of fandom infighting, and statements that can lead one down an interesting path musing over the evolution of this fandom as a whole. One critique some have leveled is that this relationship wasn't revealed soon enough, and that it should have happened seasons ago, to which others counter there was no need for it to, and that none of the character sexualities are their sole defining traits, nor should they be, and that the reveal is in line with the pacing of a show that has now proven itself true to the claims of it having been plotted from the beginning. With certain Kerberos flashback sequences have been on hand since the first season aired, though there are some who do not believe these claims of full plotting and believe that some of it was much more tenuous, and that there were still some changes that most likely occurred last minute. And of course, one must not forget that the pacing of the show has arisen differently than originally envisioned, with the seasons being broken up into smaller blocks airing closer together, meaning that some of the character reveals and plot points have had a different impact and feel because of their placement. And of course, some feel it is unrealistic to expect a character to loudly go around proclaiming their sexuality, or to shoehorn in scenes where they do not belong plot-wise, and that the way this reveal was handled has a much more normalizing effect, though some counter that what this reveal meant was so important that it should have happened sooner. All of this makes some step back and ponder the question of fan entitlement, and the rise of what some deem fandom impatience. Now, some feel fans can buy it honestly, having been let down so many times in the past by claims that end up being untrue or in their estimation unsatisfactorily carried out. However, others feel that shows should be allowed to develop as it was intended by the creators, especially in a case of such intense pre-plotting, pondering what it must have been like to be a member of staff in the know about all of these reveals coming up and still have to go out and face a barrage of accusations about queerbaiting and homophobia, knowing full well that they had everything already planned. This also puts some of the staff's earlier comments and reticence into perspective, particularly Montgomery's perplexity over Clance, as it is easy once one knows all canon to become locked into a viewpoint and not expect certain other readings. Though of course, some still feel with the dynamics at play, the fan reaction should have been obvious. Whether that is the case or not, what is definitely the case is that both cast and crew have suffered a large amount of abuse, particularly surrounding announcements or lack thereof, though there has noticeably been a softening post this announcement. Although there are some who feel that fans must learn once more that sometimes they will be disappointed and not all material will meet their expectations, which of course brings us to where the bulk of intriguing reactions have occurred, within the shipping community. Now, as mentioned, shipping in Voltron has always for many been a fraught experience, and many have gotten invested beyond which ship is more appealing or more likely to become canon, and instead have become tangled up in questions of supposed morality, good fans versus bad fans, and a whole host of in many cases aggressive bullying behaviors. It is no exaggeration to say that ship affiliations or lack thereof have ended friendships in some cases. Now, of course, there are many fine Voltron shippers who enjoy the fandom and are great sources of positivity. However, Voltron is alas a fandom where the extremity of its negative half can often sadly overshadow the good. Or at least, depending upon where it is in the fandom, it can come to feel that way. Although there are spaces that one can find where this does not occur, but they do take some looking. All this means that for many, the news of Shiro was not viewed through the lens of what it meant historically for representation, or if that was in play, that paled in comparison to what it meant for their or other people's ships and headcanons. So let us start with the man himself, Shiro's ships. Now, post this announcement, there has been a boon of lovely art, especially rainbow themed, and many fan artists, particularly LGBT ones, have been drawn back into the fandom, many of whom had been bullied off for their allegiance to Sheath, which we will discuss in our Sheath update post Series 7. Now, this addition to Shiro's backstory is being used to both affirm and deny Sheath, largely based on where one fell on the shipping scale for that couple in the first place. His sexuality either fuels those into viewing the pairing as more viable, while also pushes some to reaffirm the familial dynamic, and it has led to an intriguing phenomenon, that of Adam bashing, though to date he has not really appeared in a firm capacity within the aired text. Despite this, fans have already created elaborate headcanons, and the ship has quickly shot up in popularity, particularly on Tumblr, with tons of art and fics about their past, reconnection, and most commonly reconciliation abounding, though there are those creating a more reproachful backstory. These not always but often being made by people who feel Keith is better for Shiro because he never abandoned Shiro, and has always been supportive of him. In fact, while Shaddam, though some also call it Adachi, the ship name is still in flux at the time of this recording, has quickly garnered much support across fandom, some have also come to call it an abusive relationship, stating that Adam is clearly an emotional manipulator for not supporting Shiro and his dreams. Aside from ignoring the part that Shiro plays in that relationship and that decision, whether these are genuine concerns or not is hard to gauge, though many feel that they speak either to an inexperience in navigating complex relationship issues or an attempt to discredit this ship to support their own, an activity which has long occurred not only within this fandom. And there are some who seem to be genuinely concerned at the fandom's willingness to ignore the fact that these two characters have broken up, and they worry about the impact this will have on canon as well as with other ships. Which of course brings us to Clance. For while this announcement has also shaken up some other pairings, for example Shallura, as some now deem that ship to be offensive even though Shiro's sexuality is still open, there has been, due to its scope, more reverberations within the Clance side of fandom. Now, there are always multi-shippers weathering the storm, and there have always been positive Clance shippers. However, Clance, even more so than other ships, has long oft been defined by its more negative facets than its positives, rightly or wrongly, though it is saddening that all Clance shippers are ultimately treated as inherently toxic by some, and currently some have taken issue with how many Clancers are either seeking to align Clance with Shaddam as a sub-pairing, or use it as a springboard for more proof as to why Clance is ultimate canon king. Some dismissing this announcement as a distraction leading up to the true Clance reveal, which some feel is disingenuous to what this Shiro moment means, and showcases who cares about representation and who cares about shipping, though some argue that one can care about both and be pleased but still lean more towards their ship. This of course only speaks for the people who feel that this elevates Clance, as others feel that Clance as well as Sheath are dead, and there is for many a gloating tone around both these announcements, which are tied in part to the still prevalent Highlander mentality of there can be only one, that being only one queer couple per show. So while some felt this announcement made Clance more legitimate, others were quick to jump on Clancers, gloating that this is what they deserve after their behavior, as they did not deserve representation, a statement which many find to be quite troubling. Others have gone on to say that Clance has finally been revealed for what it always allegedly was, a dead crack ship. Now, some are confused by all of this, for just because a couple is made canon does not mean any of the fanon ships have to stop. Now, of course, there are facts that may render them less or non-viable canonically, or things that may render them in the estimation of some people problematic, but all of that can be worked through in the fictive realm, and some would argue that is exactly what it is for. In short, this reveal does not necessarily have to negate other ships, nor does it presuppose that there won't be further announcements down the line. However, at this point, some would argue that it is no longer really about that, and instead for many is either a matter of pride or winning and proving which fans are the best fans. Some shippers are simply tired of being labeled as problem starters and the blight of the fandom when they themselves have done nothing. Clancers, multi-shippers, and other shippers alike are tired of being labeled as Clanties, a special brand of anti within the Voltron fandom. In fact, all kinds of shippers were gladly sharing in the overall fandom celebration of this Shiro news, only to be mocked and ridiculed for their now purportedly dead ships. In fact, for some fans, the reaction from the fandom alas spoiled this moment for them, a phenomenon of which many remain blissfully unaware, either caught up in the positivity or simply not caring. For there are some who do not care about this development one way or the other, unless it pertains directly to the plot and action of Voltron's overall lore. For while there is of course overlap, there are some fans who are entirely removed from the transformative sphere and look on in bewilderment at the occurrences experiences therein. For many, their reaction to the statement was a positive affirmation or nonchalance. Indeed, this affirms for many that the shipping portion of the Voltron fandom has fallen far down the path of toxicity, and that these type of occurrences shall continue, at least until the show finishes, or there are no longer new things being added to canon. Now, while of course it is unfair to malign those for why they enjoy a show or start watching it, as enjoying a show for the extra fandom material or ships versus plot and the like is no better or worse. All that is better or worse is how people then react and interact with others, which can go wrong no matter what type of fan you are. However, it is clear that there are open wounds for many in the Voltron shipping fandom, particularly those who have been in it for a long time. This will often manifest in attacks like those currently occurring, seeking to hurt in ways that they have been hurt by another shipper of the same ilk. The mentality of, well, these shippers were awful to us, so now it's our turn to be awful back. It can also occur because in certain communities that has been the environment that has been fostered. This will all likely fade post the series conclusion, though that is not a guarantee. As with certain fandoms, it takes more time. However, for those who enter post the final seasons, the passion of all of this will be lost on many, and hopefully what will remain is the excitement of seeing this relationship, hopefully nuanced and well handled on screen. Movement towards a moment where such portrayals are so commonplace, they are no longer noteworthy. This segues well into the excitement over Shiro's perceived masculinity and the subversion of gay male tropes. Now, while of course it is always good to move away from stereotypes and the idea that one can, as the saying goes, judge a book by its cover, or that groups are monolithic and without nuance. However, there is some unintentional shaming occurring in some people's excitement, with some fans proclaiming things along the lines of, "Thank God it wasn't one of the twinks." A statement which, while understandable in its enthusiasm for variance, does put down those who do not conform to those masculine archetypes and do not want to. In short, it is always wise to be wary one isn't placing one presentation of a person's identity over another. For example, another situation that has arisen post this reveal is the disavowal of bi Lance, which was a widely held theory that Lance was/is bisexual. While some are more enthused and hopeful than ever for bi Lance and feel it is more likely and are finding more and more hints, including some recently posted art, there are others who are finding themselves mocked for ever even entertaining the idea. And many have been saddened to see that the fighting has resulted in certain bisexual individuals feeling that their desires and wants are once more being supplanted by the rest of the fandom, as some are being mocked for even thinking that this could occur. Again, this ultimately stems from frustrations that have been bubbling between the various fans in this fandom for a long time that are now manifesting in light of such a clear-cut announcement for Shiro. The spillover of fans who are tired of seeing others interpret scenes within the text as fact. In short, there have been a wide variety of reactions, and while many are happy, there are others who are being stepped on and who are saddened. And as a result, some have stepped away from certain parts of fandom in order to fully embrace and enjoy the news, and to ponder what comes next for Voltron, as there are still a good 26 episodes left to go, and the series has progressively moved to examine more and more interesting themes and plots, at least in the minds of fans of the show. For now, most are celebrating a moment that many believed would never happen, and so if one stays on that side of fandom, it is a wonderful land full of excitement and creative upswings in all avenues, shipping, art, theories, and more. So as with everything, if one can hopefully avoid the dark fandom underbelly in all its aspects, hopefully the experience will not be soured. If you made it to the end, you know what time it is. Question time. How do you feel about this Shiro announcement, as well as all the other Voltron news that came out of this year's Comic-Con? Again, time of this recording. Are you a fan of Voltron at all? If so, what is your Voltron ship? Or do you not have one? Were you aware that this news had had such a varied reaction? And finally, in your estimation, do you feel that the Voltron fandom in general focuses too much on shipping? You know the drill. Please answer as many as possible down below and number them if you can. I'm always interested to see what you have to say. Voltron has been and continues to be a wild ride, and there is much more to talk about, not just in Voltron but in fandom in general, so please of course stay tuned. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. And now, until next time, let's get to that outro. Bye bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons' names on the side. There are as always new videos coming soon, so stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.